Hello, lovely people, and welcome to another episode of Show Your Tune. Today we will be looking at an Audi whose owner is Thomas. I don't have a lot of information. I just received a Facebook Messenger with some stuff, with some pictures and RAW file. This is interesting because it has the new Helix Compose drivers. So he has Helix Compose tweeters, the i3 T20 and mid-bass i3W200, and I want to check it out mainly because of these two drivers, because these drivers were released very recently. And basically these drivers, they're special because let me find it. So the whole lineup is very cool. Basically it's kind of a cherry pick and choose. So what you do, you choose a driver, and then you can choose a special, from what I understand, you can choose a special mounting specifically designed for your vehicle. So there's like different lines, i5, i3 and i7. The i7 is the better one. And what they do is, I don't know if they have any pictures here. Yeah, they basically have flex mount. So you have mounting rings that are designs for different manufacturers. So you have like one for Audi, one for BMW, one for Volkswagen, and so on and so on. And basically you choose the mounting ring and the actual speaker that goes inside. And it's cool because it's like factory upgrade. You don't have to make custom rings, nothing. And like these connectors as well, it's a very cool system. I just loved it. So he has the Compose tweeters and mid-bass drivers. So the mid-bass are 8-inch. As well, he has Audison Voce 3-inch mid-range and Eaton 12-inch active subwoofer. We're gonna have a look at that. And for amps, he has this M6 and DSP3. The subwoofer is active, so he doesn't have a monoblock. Now let's have a look at some pictures. So this is his car. Now we have, this is amp rack, which is extremely simple. 6-channel amp and a DSP, because the rest is going to the active subwoofer. It's just not finished, obviously, but it's fine. When I'm looking at an amp rack, because I love like clean wiring and stuff, if I may suggest, so from this picture I see that this is like the actual boot lock opening. So you are like taking a photo from the back. So what I suggest is take this amp and put it like sideways on the top like that, and then this DSP, turn it upside down and put it next to it. So you would have, if you can make custom RCAs, you would have literally like 15-20 centimeters RCAs, which would be very short and like minimize the noise. And then the distribution block, put it on this corner at the bottom, and it will look very cool. I think you would have all like, this would be upside down on this side, so you'd have like Helix DSP3, and this would be sideways as well, so you can read the actual. And then if you want, make a beauty panel and everything, it would be very cool. So these tweeters, again, they have like a special mounting that you can, what is it? Yeah, so these tweeters, again, you can remove them. You can use it like this. You can use it with a pod. It's like adjustable and everything. Like it comes with a few different pieces. And again, it's very cool. So what I think he's done is he used the actual pod maybe, and just, I don't know how it's fixed to the A-pillar, but it is there. It looks cool. On the other side as well. So it looks like they are not aimed on axis. This one looks like, the passenger side looks like it's aimed on axis. but maybe more towards the middle of the car. And this one looks to be aimed towards the middle of the car or even to the passenger side. So they're not on axis, but it's not a problem. The 3-inch mid-ranges, I would assume they're going to be in the factory locations in the dash, which is a very good location, like in the very, very corners of the dash. And there's no pictures of the mid bass, but we have this subwoofer. So this subwoofer, I had it here somewhere, and now I lost it. Yeah, that's fine. So this is an active 12-inch subwoofer. It's not massive. I would assume it's like in maybe 1 cubic foot box with what looks to be kind of a small port. I'm not sure if it's chuffing, but so I don't know about the quality of this brand or subwoofer in general. I looked at the prices like £250 or something like that, but these active subwoofers, the main bottleneck in these is the built-in amplifier, which you can see here on the side. It's just a plate amplifier, and it does advertise like 200 watts RMS, but probably does even less than that. And the best thing what you can do with these active subwoofers is just literally ditch the built-in amplifier and connect a monoblock. Even a small monoblock of like 400-500 watts would have much more headroom. Even if this sub is not rated a lot, if it's going to be rated like 200 watts or something, the bigger monoblock would have much more headroom and it would sound nicer. So I don't know about the output. If it's enough for you, happy days. But if you would want to replace this, before replacing it, just replace the amp. Just put a monoblock inside and wire it directly. And I would assume that this is going to be tuned quite high. I don't know, maybe like 35, 40 hertz. We'll see from the measurements. So these are all the pictures. Now let's have a look at the measurements. So we have only raw measurements. It's not a full tune. So again, we're going to try to advise something about the crossover points. So let's have a look at the subwoofer tweeters first. Left and right. Yeah, so we can see a very extremely nice response. Let's have a look at the tweeter properties. So these tweeters FS 1.8K and 90, and look, Helix does an amazing job. It just has minimum crossover frequencies. So if you use 24 dB slope, 3K, 3.5 with 12, it's amazing. You cannot ask for more. This is slap a 3K 24 dB and happy days, because with this response, like if you cross it at 3K, it would be very, very nice. And look at this, they're very, very flat linear. The only we have this little dip here, but it's totally fine. So you could tune it, cross it, EQ it, yeah, something like this line. Just remove this peak if you want, because they're off axis. So this is the right one. Yeah, you could maybe try to aim it a bit more just to bring this top end, because they will play high. And this is the left one, the driver's side. It plays all the way up to 15K and then slight drop. Again, probably because of aiming. Try to aim it a bit more and you will have this top end, but they're extremely linear. Look how flat it is, just tiny bit of EQ, maybe 1 or 2 bands. And yeah, cross it at 3K as Helix recommends. It's going to be totally fine. Now, another thing, these mid-ranges, they look amazing as well, the response. So you can see that these mid-ranges are not in small sealed enclosures, because you don't have that massive mountain that you have, because we had in these series quite a few small sealed pods, and you always saw like big peaks in about like between 100 and 300 hertz, but here you have nothing like it. What you have is exactly the same like we had in my car with mid-ranges in the dash. So you have a slight cancellation here about, so this is a bit higher. I have in my car about 1.2, 1.3K. This is a bit higher, about 1.8K. I would assume that would be because look how close to the glass it is. And the glass is very, it's not shallow, it's kind of steep angle. And they're very, very, very close to the glass. So I would imagine that's, the distance is small. And that's why the cancellation is a bit high in frequency, like 1.7K. If we look at individuals, like on this, you cannot really see it at all. On the left side and on the right side, it's just barely there. Yeah. Then everything below that, everything below 2K, all of this mountain, but it's not a mountain, it's just a small peak, very wide. It's an acoustical boost due to the corner loading. The drivers are in the corners, so they're like almost horn loaded. And again, in my car, it's like plus 10 dB and more, but this is much more linear. It's just like, what, 5, 6, 7 dB. So just to bring it down, it's totally fine. And they have extension all the way to 14K. Basically, they play all the way, same, almost the same like with the tweeters. So you have a very high flexibility where you can cross them. So if you cross them at 3K, 3.5, well, I would always say cross the tweeters as low as you can. So 3K, it's a perfectly good crossover point. And like with these mid-ranges, you would like, because they are flat all the way to 14, you could, you will need like a 24 dB Linkwood's Riley, and it's gonna follow the acoustical just perfectly. The only mindful thing that we have to be mind of is, where is it? So this one, you can see in Audison sheet, you have this massive peak at 2, 5, 6, 7K or something like that. This is going to be a cone breakup at 7K. So you would try to have this cone breakup in the crossover region, even if it's not showing up on the measurement, but I think it's going to be this one. So it doesn't show that much, but still it has to be like in the crossover. So if you cross it like at 3K, 6K is going to be a full octave down. It's not going to be a problem. So like this, I don't know who designed your system, but like mids and tweets, it's a match made in heaven, I want to say. It's very, very nice. Now the low end of the mid ranges, so they are FS 160. So they do have high FS, because I would imagine they will be high sensitivity. Yeah, 93 dB sensitive. So they are very sensitive. 160, however, the QTS 0.64. So about 250, I want to say, would be a good crossover depending on your listening levels. So 250 somewhere here. And again, this peak that you have will help you to have a much higher crossover. So if you're going to cross it 250 acoustically, probably you will need something like 300 electrical crossover, much higher crossover. Actually, let's do one just for fun. Let's do one. I like doing this just for fun. Let's add a target base limited. Let's cross it, as I mentioned, 250 acoustically, 24 dB. Where's the target? There we go. So let's bring the level down to, let's say, 55. Ooh, 55. There we go, something like that. And let's add a crossover. Let's try Butterworth 4. I like Butterworth crossovers. Butterworth 4, 300. Yeah, so probably a bit shallower. Actually, Linkwood's Riley, it might work. Linkwood's Riley 2 at 350. Even 400. 450. So with Linkwood's Riley, it helps you to bring this part down as well, because Lincoln is a wide crossover, so it affects a wide area, and it will help you to bring this peak down without any EQ work. And yeah, like 450 Lincoln too, just it would be perfect for this one. And then you could slightly boost this area if you need to, like to the target, because this target is a bit off, but it's fine. So yeah, much higher crossover than 250, and you're gonna be totally fine. Just bring this peak down to 3K and then just cross it. Yeah. So 250 acoustically, I think would work very, very nice. Even 300 if the mid bass. Let's have a look at the mid bass. Mid bass left, mid bass right. So the mid bass left is the driver side. Yeah, so the wheel is on the left side. So this is the driver side, and again, driver side null 160. You cannot do anything about it. So this is an 8-inch, so it plays all the way down to like 35, which is very, very cool. You don't need it, but for sensitivity is very good. And it plays up to 400, so you can cross it at, yeah, 250 acoustically would be fine. You would need extension down to 5, but you can manage if you choose a very steep bezel, for example. Let's have a look. EQ, remove the target. So if I choose like 450 bezel, let's try bezel 450 and very steep. No, 400. No, you will need then Butterworth. Yeah, there we go. 400, yeah. Yeah, so Butterworth, steep Butterworth is gonna bring it down. Probably a bit higher, just to have some level here in the crossover region. Yeah, because if you cross it to 250 or something, this is gonna go like this. And then just, yeah, so you would, with the crossover, remove all of this area. And this you can manage with EQ. So this is one side, the bottom end is totally fine. The right side is a bit more problematic. It has some issues above 200. However, even with this response, I would imagine you could have about 250 acoustical crossover, because this is kind of following the acoustical crossover. So you would, the only thing you would need to do is to cut all of this with a steep high order crossover, and maybe a little boost here, but don't boost this area. Yeah, so the right one is a bit more problematic. On the left one, you have much more level in this area. So you couldn't cross it at a higher, but at 200 as well, it's a problematic. Yeah, 250, 260 acoustically into the mid-range would be nice. Now let's have a look at the subwoofer. So these, both of them play very nice all the way down. The subwoofer, that active one. So it does look a bit weird. You have, it plays high all the way up to 150 and even higher than that. It does kind of play low-ish. So I would assume it might be tuned something like 35 hertz, because it has this peak. And then the drop off, which is typical for a ported box. Now this, at first I thought it might be a cancellation due to like the length of the car, that a typical one that we have in a car, but this is a bit too drastic. Now let's have a look at the install location for the subwoofer. It's like this. So this is a, how's it called, a sedan or whatever. It's not like my car, which is open, but it has like an actual trunk. And this sub is right behind the rear seats, facing forwards. Now, some of you, if you watched my channel, I did a testing video where I had a sealed subwoofer in various and ported as well in various locations and in various orientations, facing towards you, towards the back, towards the side. And I found that from my experiments, this orientation of subwoofer is the worst that you can happen. That in my car, at least, it's the worst orientation. It gives the worst response. So what I would suggest you to do is play with the orientation of this subwoofer. Try to turn it other way around, facing the boot. Maybe try to put it on the side of the car. And if your car is left-hand driving, put the box on the opposite side, on the right corner, on the right side, so you'll have much longer path length towards you. But yeah, play with orientation with a sub, because I really doubt that this can be like a normal response for the subwoofer. It has to do, something has to do with the orientation, because to have this massive of a hole, it can be a combination of things. It could be a combination of the cabin cancellation and the port or whatever and anything. Another thing to try is plug this port with something like a small towel or whatever and try to measure. But I doubt it's going to be the port. I think it's going to be the position. Just play with different positions, and yeah. And you can try actually in sealed the subwoofer as well. Then you would have more extension a bit. It is a 12-inch, so it would play like down to 25 or something if you need it, because now it's a bit peaky here. But again, with this, like when you have two eights, but the thing is, like, those eights, they're in the door, so they're not gonna be like extremely tight bass, extremely nice, because again, door panels are door panels, and especially in lower frequencies. So even if you have eights in the doors that can play to 36, you wouldn't really want that. You would want that only for efficiency in the higher bandwidth. Now, like BMW have under seats. For under seats, it's fine because it's a much more solid mounting than flimsy door panels. So even with eights, cross it at 60 or 70, because to play them too low, they're gonna rattle the panels and stuff. And that's the thing, like when you have mid bass playing down to 60, you could potentially live with this. Just cut all above, everything above like 65, all of this with a crossover. But it's an active one, so I'm not sure what kind of controls you have. But you should have, an active one. You should have a crossover of somewhat. So this is probably full range. But first of all, play with the location of this sub. Put it in a different place and see what happens. But yeah, you would have extension down to 30, cross it at 60. Yeah, so my suggestion for this system, cross it about 60, 65 into the mid bass, then about 220, 250 into the mid range, and about 3K into the tweeters. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. If anybody else has any other suggestions, please feel free to comment below. And thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.